In this video, we're going to talk about exporting logs, exporting menu items, as well as importing menu items, and why we would use those options. The first one we're going to talk about is exporting logs. Now keep in mind, this is something that could be requested of you, especially during test with this unit by tech support. And what they're looking for there is all the internal logs behind the screens, details that are important to engineering, not so much technicians or the store themselves. However, we're going to need to make sure that we have a SanDisk type or equivalent USB that needs to be no more than 16 gigabytes, and we want to make sure that it's a plastic type USB like we have here, as well as it being a type version 2 USB. Now this is the recommendation from Henny Penny. However, once we have that USB, let's go ahead and take a look at what it would look like to get into the control and see what exporting or importing those items would look like. So if we come in close here, we're at our main screen, and you see that we have our USB tab icon right here on the home screen. We'll go ahead and tap on that, and then you can see we have three different options here. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert my USB. And what's an important note here that I want to call out is in just a moment, once the control recognizes this USB, my options are going to turn blue. So you see what happened right there. So the first thing that we're going to give an example of is, like I mentioned before, if we're asked to export our logs, we're going to come in and tap on that option. This is where we have to enter the code 1122, which is our manager pin. Tap the check mark. And then this is where we're going to need to maybe ask tech support if they want just the last day, the last week, or all since the unit was installed. So we can tap either one of those three options, and then we're going to hit export. Now I'm not going to do it in this example, so we're just going to go ahead and cancel this. But then once it was done exporting, then it would say export complete. And we could go ahead and remove the USB. Now I'm going to back out of it. And what I want to talk about next is export menu. So an example of this is, let's say during installation, we're installing 2, maybe even 3 units. So what we could do is go ahead and get our first unit set up, especially with our day parts configuration, etc. And then what we could do is we could come in here, install that USB, come into this menu, and then export those menus to where we can import it on the second and third unit to kind of speed up that process. So let's take a look at what that looks like real quick. So now that we're back in here, it's recognized that I have a USB in the port. We'll go ahead and tap export menu, and then it says export finish. Now typically it's going to take just a few moments for that to export, and that's not uncommon. It may not always be this fast, but we can go ahead and tap the green check mark. And then now that we have that exported, we could go ahead and remove this, install it on the next unit. Remember, if we were back at our home screen, we would tap that USB icon, that tab. We would come in here, and then since it would recognize that that file is on the USB, which we can see right here, this is going to be what it would look like if we were to have our USB plugged into our laptop. And you can see this file type is labeled as a JSON type file. And that's going to be the letter J and then the letters SON followed after it. So this is what it would look like for a properly set up file for the menu. Now that we've seen that, we'll see what it looks like to go ahead and import that menu. So this again would be on maybe the second or third unit. So we'll go ahead and tap that. It's going to ask us for that manager pin again, which is going to be 1122. I'm going to hit my green check mark, and then it's going to tell me that it's importing. So it has now completed that, so I'll hit my green check mark. But this is where it's not uncommon, especially if I was to go back out to my main menu, if we end up witnessing it change over to like you just seen right there, and basically what it's doing is doing a quick reboot. Now you may not see that exact picture, that could change in the future, but it is not uncommon to see it change like that and go back to its main screen. So that's what it would look like to export and import menu items, as well as exporting logs.